Hi, Alif, and welcome to the interview. So
Thank you for
today,
having me.
welcome. So today we're just having you on board to share a little bit more about what it's like to be a PhD candidate. All right. Okay. So although I'm a marketing manager at the Singapore campus of James Cook University, this video is not endorsed or approved or sponsored by the university.
Yep.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. So we are recording already. So let's start with a self intro.
Okay. My name is Alif. I am a PhD candidate here at James Cook University's Singapore campus. I embarked on my full-time PhD journey in April 2020 of April this year. And prior to my PhD, I was actually working full-time at a local healthcare institution for the past 10 years. And the first 5 years in that institution, I was actually doing administrative and operational work. And then later on, I transited into a more a research role, doing qualitative research to help design, improve, evaluate various programs and services for patients and healthcare workers in the institution. So some of the work that I did then was to understand why healthcare workers don't wash their hands, why patients don't come back to the clinic, lived experiences of patients living with various forms of diseases such as HIV and things like that, and also antibiotic prescribing experiences among healthcare workers. So while I was working full-time, I actually undertook my undergrad studies on a part-time basis. So I actually did my 3 years Bachelor of Arts degree at Murdoch University, and then I came over after that to do my honours year, the Bachelor of Psychological Science honours degree at James Cook University here in Singapore. Yeah.
So is your current research relevant to what you were doing in the past?
In terms of methodology, some of that is actually quite similar to what I did in the past. So my general research interests include qualitative research, studying the psychology and sociology of resilience, studying romantic relationships among heterosexual couples, among LGBTQ couples, and also the social determinants of health. So some of the things that I did with the LGBTQ community previously does apply somewhat. The qualitative research also does apply somewhat to what I'm doing now. Basically, my current PhD area of research involves understanding the resilience of same-sex couples against socio-political stresses here in Singapore. So my PhD project is actually an extension of my honours year thesis, which I did with James Cook University in 2019. So then I think I was interested in understanding romantic relationships within the LGBTQ community. And what I found was that much has already been done regarding the negative experiences of these couples, such as the stigma, the prejudice, the discrimination that these couples experience. So, and through my work, I also knew that there were actually couples who have been together for very long already, even though in Singapore it's not socially and legally recognized for these couples, but then they still maintain their relationships over many years. So that was what spurred me to take on that topic during my honours year thesis, and I realized that halfway through I could actually extend it to a PhD topic, and which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned there's actually a lot of research on the social stigma and the negative aspects. So you decided to focus specifically on what keeps them together, is it?
Yeah, the strengths and the positive aspects, because I think I guess the research has been focused on the negative experience. I guess it catches people's minds, all these negative experiences, but then not a lot has been talked about the strengths and the positive aspects of being in those kind of relationships. So I decided to do that for my PhD. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Right. So perhaps we could move on to your thoughts of actually becoming a PhD candidate. So I think most people have the have the idea that when you come to a university, you enroll, you attend classes, and then you take exams or hand in assignments, and then you clock the credits, and then you graduate after a couple of years. How is that different from a PhD experience?
Very, very different. Because I think the bachelor's and a master's program, I think they have a very structured framework, that you go through the number of subjects semester after semester. You take a certain number of subjects and then you take exams, you pass, then you move on and so on and so forth. But for a PhD, I think depending on different countries have slightly different systems. So some PhD courses, such as those in Singapore and the US, the first 1.5 years you actually have to take some coursework. So that actually gives you some certainty or some framework for your PhD. But I think in Australia, New Zealand, and I think the UK, you go straight into your research. So there's no coursework for you to do per se, but although that being said, there are professional development programs or courses or workshops that you need to go through as part of that PhD journey, but no coursework per se, unless you elect to do this coursework program. But in a sense, that the PhD system in Australia and UK and New Zealand, it's very unstructured. So when I came to the program, I had to create my own structures, when do I need to submit certain reports? When do I need to get my confirmation done? So no one is there to say that, you're going to go through these stages as in your bachelor's or your master's. But in PhD, you need to take that ownership, that responsibility on yourself to, I need to go through this. What are my milestones and things like that? So for me, I created those structures to help me in this unstructured PhD program. Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of responsibility and ownership.
Yeah.
Basically you're as if you're just in the working world.
Yes.
There's an objective there, then you plan your own way to yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I suppose the admissions process could be a bit more different as well. Maybe you could share a little bit more about that.
The admissions process was actually quite a tedious one. Although I must say that I think Kenneth helped me quite a lot during my admission. So
Terence, right?
Sorry, Terence. Yes. Okay. Sorry, Terence. I'm talking to Kenneth. Yeah. So Terence helped me a lot during my enrollment and admission. So basically, towards the end of my honours year, my supervisor then and my primary advisor now, the same supervisor, we talked about my postgraduate goals lah. And then she was actually suggesting, do you want to do a master's or do you want to do a PhD and things like that? So then I said that I had given it some thought, and then she said, okay, why not? Let's fill up the application form after you submit your thesis. So once I submitted the thesis for my honours, then I started working on the application for my PhD. And that required me to fill up quite a number of forms, gather a lot of documents. So I needed to state what my project will be like, what am I going to do and things like that, what are the resources that I need from James Cook to help me complete my project, also the funding and things like that, and then my potential secondary advisor as well as my advisor mentor. Because as compared to the honours year where you only have one supervisor, a PhD you need you have a team of what we call advisory panel. So you have a primary advisor, secondary, and advisor mentor. So you move through your PhD journey with this group of advisors. And so then we went back and forth, my primary advisor and I, when we wrote up, as I wrote up the application. And then once we were both quite satisfied, I think it was in July of 2019, then we started engaging the secondary advisor and advisor mentor. And I think my journey is slightly different from those who come in from the outside to James Cook University to do their PhD, because I already knew who I wanted as my advisors, and I already had a project to begin with. So some of the other candidates actually they didn't know who the advisors were. So during, I think there was a PhD briefing or scholarship briefing where they attended, and then they submitted, I think, a expression of interest. And then I think the school will then try and match them with potential supervisors. But for me, I skipped that step and I already had my advisors and my project and everything all done up lah. So but then the documentation part, I needed to update my CV, and because I had publications, I had my research experience, my conference presentations, all I had to bring them all together just for the application lah. So that actually took quite a long time to gather. And I think halfway through my application, I think Kenneth texted me. He said that, hey, I saw you. Oh, sorry. I keep saying Kenneth. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. So Terence actually texted me, and then he said, hey, I saw your application in the system. You're halfway through. Let me help you to see what documents you need. You're still pending and things like that for the submission. So I was actually quite lucky because when I submitted, I thought initially that I just needed to click the submit button and then JCUA will process my application. But after I submitted that, actually Terence texted me again, there are still some forms that you're missing, and you need to submit that to us for processing. So, and that was and luckily enough, I planned well ahead. So I had like 2 weeks before the scholarship deadline, because annually the scholarship deadline is on 30th of September. So once you miss that deadline, you will only be considered for scholarship in the following year. So I still had 2 weeks to get the necessary documents that Terence needed. And then he managed to push it through, and I actually submitted with a few days, I think, left with the scholarship deadline. And so that was actually the rush, because I submitted my thesis in June, and then July, August, September, I had 3 months to I had to push everything through. So it was tedious. It was it was also very rushing, but I'm glad everything went through. Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of the biggest differences in the admissions process of becoming a PhD candidate is also for undergrad and maybe just the typical postgrad masters, you apply and then you just wait for the enrollment to get processed. Yeah. Then you start school and you have your lessons. But for PhDs, you actually have to submit a topic that you're actually looking to research into, right? So you have to pre-plan all this.
Yeah, correct. And I think you also had to find a supervisor who is willing to take you on that topic lah. Some of the other candidates took on the supervisor's topics because the topics were already there. So if you have a topic, you can try and propose it. If not, then the supervisors could also propose a particular topic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then I think there will be more work on the supervisor's end. It's a lot easier to get a supervisor. You have a topic ready that they might want to help you out with.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's true. And also, I guess it depends on the domains or disciplines that you want to take on. So, for example, for qualitative research, only a small handful of lecturers here in JCU do qualitative research. The rest are quantitative researchers. So, so you need to find that fit between the supervisor and also your topic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we can move on to the next topic to talk about. Right. So in when you're a PhD candidate, there's something called confirmation. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Okay, so in the Australian system, you meet, you have to go through various milestones as you go along your PhD journey, as compared to the other systems around the world. So in the Australian system, James Cook specifically, the confirmation of candidature happens between the first 6 months to 1 year of your candidature. So it's actually the first major milestone within the Australian PhD system. And my candidature with JCU is actually provisional until I successfully complete my confirmation of candidature. So the confirmation of candidature, or COC for short, is where the candidates need to demonstrate that the PhD project that we are going to do for the next few years is of suitable scope, and of a certain standard for a PhD degree, of a certain complexity and things like that, and that we can complete the projects that we have in mind on time and with the available resources and funding that we have, as well as what JCU has. So we also need to show that our projects is, because a PhD is, you're trying to generate and add new knowledge to the wider discipline. So you need to show that your project is actually, you're trying to fill a gap or extend certain knowledge within your discipline. So you need to ensure that your project is actually situated within the larger, broader research discipline, rather than you reinventing the wheel or doing something that has already been done. So, I think for as I mentioned earlier, what was that? Yeah, so within that first 6 months to 1 year, you need to work on two main documents. One is your research proposal, and the other one is your literature review. So your research proposal is where you write up what you're going to do, what methods you're going to use, who are you going to sample, and how you're going to go about analyzing the data. And then for your literature review, as I mentioned, that you need to ensure that you have done your due diligence to identify a particular gap that you want to address, and that this gap is what you're going to do for your PhD. So these two documents are actually very important for your confirmation. And once you have finished doing your research proposal, it's actually then sent to an external examiner for review. So the external examiner actually has about I think 2 to 3 weeks to review your proposal, and then after that they give you back that research proposal for you to make amendments based on their comments and things like that. So so within that first 6 months to 1 year, you need to do a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of preparation work, and then you need to meet constantly with your supervisors to ensure that what you are doing is on track. It is actually filling a gap within the literature and things like that. So so the literature review was actually also quite a big task for me, because my review question was actually very broad. I had to go through 20,000 articles, and then after I went through that, my final list of articles is about 600. And then from there, I then narrowed it down further to I think about 8 for my confirmation of candidature, while the rest will be written up as part of my thesis. So actually it's quite a big undertaking. And then so once you have made the changes to your research proposal based on the examiner's comments, you then engage research support and the research dean's office to help to organize your confirmation of candidature seminar. And 1 week before your candidature seminar, you actually have to submit your research proposal, your literature review for the chair of the candidature committee, as well as independent academic. So this independent academic is someone who is outside of your advisory panel, who will then review, together with the chair, both of them will review the documents to see that, okay, you have done the due diligence, your research work is, your work is actually up to the standard of a PhD degree and things like that. And then comes the seminar, the confirmation of candidature seminar. So the seminar, it was actually quite, because I've attended previous seminars, confirmation of candidature seminar. So I knew some of the things that was expected to happen during the seminars, like the questions from the independent academic and things like that. So I had to prepare everything in advance, the slides, the potential questions that they may ask, and then on the day itself, the seminar is actually open to the public unless there's some confidentiality agreement that precludes that seminar from being public. So some of my friends, some of my ex-colleagues attended, and I think you also attended the confirmation seminar that day. Some of the undergrads were there, lecturers, and So the seminar is about 20 to 30 minutes. After which the independent academic will be asked to will ask you some questions, like, oh, why do you choose this topic? How sure are you that this method is going to work? Your sample size, how sure are you that this is adequate and things like that. So very rigorous kind of questioning into the details of your project to make sure that you know what you're doing, and the presentation and questioning, question and answer section is also part of the marking scheme for the confirmation of candidature. So yeah, it's not something that they do for fun or to just question you for the heck of it, but they want to see how you present, how you answer questions and things like that. And if you pass, then they tick that checkbox. Okay, he can answer questions, he or she can answer questions, he or she can do presentations and things like that. So so once the seminar is over, the question and answers are done, then everyone will be asked to leave. And then the chair of the candidature committee will then separate me and my advisory panel into another room, into another Zoom room, because we did it via Zoom. And then while the chair and the independent academic discussed whether the candidate pass or fail. So I was actually quite nervous in the room with my advisory panel. It's like, oh, he didn't ask, he asked this question, and things like that. So I'm so glad I managed to answer things like that. So, and then after they have decided, then they'll bring the advisory panel back into the room while I stay in that room, and then wait when they call me back into the main room. So when I go back into the main room about 5-10 minutes later, then they announce that, okay, you passed, you pass or fail. For me, I'm quite glad that I passed. And I think that's when you texted me on LinkedIn Messenger or something. Oh, did you pass? And I said, yes, I just did. Everything got signed and things like that. So yeah, so basically the confirmation of candidature, that's the process that I went through for my COC.
Okay. So I think one question I have is the revision by the review by the external person. Yeah. How many revisions are you allowed?
It really depends on the comments that the external reviewer gives. So some external reviewers can give very long comments. I heard from some of the other candidates that it was about 1 to 2 pages long of filled with comments. Mine was, I think, half a page. So I was when I first received that the comments half a page, I asked my primary advisor, sure or not? I mean, because I was expecting a bit more, but then sure or not? Is he sure that that's all that he has? So and you only have that one chance to make that revision and address. So if you don't agree with some of the comments that he or she has made, you can also state the reasons why. So for example, like mine, the external reviewer said that, oh, your participant reimbursement was not enough. Your participant's going to do a lot, but then you only give, for example, $5. So I already had in mind funding to apply for in the future. So I didn't make that change in my proposal, but I rebutted that comment saying that I understand funding is currently low, but I'm planning to apply for future funding, and that will increase the participant reimbursement. So it's only that one revision, but and you adjust it as is lah.
Okay, so is it possible that you don't even make it to the confirmation of candidature stage if you can't even get your revisions done properly at this stage?
So your question is whether so actually the revisions is between, so when the reviewers give us back after what they have reviewed, the candidate and the advisors then have to discuss, okay, what are the changes that you have to make and things like that. And then once the changes are satisfactory, then we engage the research office to start organizing the confirmation of candidature seminars. Okay. Yeah.
I see. So it's not so much of it's not like a critical milestone, so to speak, where if you don't get the review done properly to the expectation, they will drop you there and then, and they say, don't even bother going for the COC.
You have to address the comments that are given, and it's between you and your supervisors to make sure that the comments are addressed adequately, and if not, then you give your reasons why. Like for example, my participant reimbursement was not enough, but I'm not gonna. I wasn't gonna change it anyway. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I think that answers the question. So there won't be a case. So basically, the supervisor will make sure you get the reviews done properly before they even call for a COC panel together, right?
Yes, correct. So once you get your comments and reviews back, you will. So I actually met with my supervisors multiple times to make sure that everything was in order before we give the dates before we give some dates to research office to go and organize the confirmation of seminar. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So let's move on from the COC. That's just one of the early milestones. There's still a long journey ahead.
Actually, the first report that you need to submit is actually 6 weeks into your candidature. So that one is a 6-week check-in. They call it the 6-week check-in, where you lay out the ground rules between you and your supervisor. So like, how many times do we meet? Whose names will be on the publications, and things like that. So various agreements and deadlines to meet in the first 6 weeks. And then after that is the next milestone. The first major milestone will be the confirmation of candidature. And then after the COC confirmation, 1.5 years to 2 years is the mid-candidature review, where you may have to do a presentation and update the candidature committee on your progress. And then I think 3 months to 6 months before you submit your thesis, there will be a pre-completion seminar. And that's where you update them, okay, I've on your thesis write-up, what are the chapters that you're going to write in your thesis. So yes, in terms of that structure, that is something which I also like, especially with the Australian system, where you have all those milestones to meet. So actually, I can look forward to the next milestone after I finish one. Yeah.
Okay, so still got a couple more years to go, lah.
Yes.
Very long journey. Okay.
It's not as long as the US system. I think US system is about 5-6 years, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So depending on which system you're in, you may be longer or shorter.
Also about how fast you can get your research, collect your data, right?
Yes. I mean, like some of the candidates had to pause their candidature because of COVID. So they couldn't collect data and things like that. So yeah, all these things you need to take into consideration as is a normal part of doing research, I guess. I mean, unforeseen circumstances.
So actually, how are you planning to overcome this issue of collecting data during COVID? Does it affect you at all?
Somewhat, yes. Because my first study, which is in Feb of next year, it'll be actually qualitative interviews with same-sex couples. But usually I would do it face-to-face. But because of COVID, I had to make some adjustments to do it online. But I guess since we are in phase 3, I think there'll be some restrictions lifted off, but then I still have to adhere to the COVID guidelines and things like that if I were to conduct face-to-face interviews. But Zoom would be primarily where I'll be conducting the interviews because of the COVID situation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move on to the last part, where maybe you can share a little bit more on the advice to prospective PhD candidates or HDR candidates.
Wow. Okay. So a PhD is actually a marathon, not a sprint. So my advice to future candidates would revolve around starting and completing this marathon. So I think the first one would probably be to plan and prepare your PhD in advance, especially when you know that the scholarship deadlines and things like that. So you need a lot of time to get your letters of recommendations. You need to update your CVs. You need to fill up your forms. You need to get your relevant signatures. So, and you need to give yourself some buffer time in case things get delayed. Like in my case where, I forgot certain documentations and Terence, hey, you forgot these things. Can you give it to me by today and things? So you need to give yourself that buffer time. If not, then the deadlines for scholarship and things like that will be pushed to the year after. And secondly, I think pick a topic that interests you, because you'll be reading, writing, drowning, pouring your heart out and mind into a particular topic over the next 4 years. So do something that you can bear to be with throughout this marathon, because there'll be some days where you really don't want to look at your readings or the papers that you've written. And having a topic that interests you will always draw you back somehow to the project. And doing a topic that you hate or doesn't interest you will make it all the more harder for you to stay the course over the next 4 years or so. The third advice is your advisory panel. So I think the advisory panel can make or break your PhD journey. So having a supportive panel who can guide and encourage you along the way, along your marathon towards the finish line is important. And I'm actually very grateful to have a supportive team of advisors whom I can go to if I face any issues or need emotional support during tough times. And I know in my case, it's slightly a bit different because I've known my primary advisor since my honours year. So it's slightly different for candidates who come in fresh from somewhere else, come into the university to do their PhD. They may not have that time, that sufficient time to get to know your supervisors or your advisors. So perhaps what you can do is to look up your supervisors to see what research topics they do, asking previous or current students how these potential supervisors are and things like that. So at least you have some idea of what their working style is from current students or previous students and some of the work that they do, so that you won't be in for a real shock. If let's say you and your advisory panel are not able to work together. So it's actually quite important, the advisory panel. And I think lastly, it would be self-care. As any marathon, you need to refuel along the way. You need to rest. You need to catch up with your friends, your family members, and you need to take time away from your project to come back with fresh eyes. So you need to take adequate care of yourself, getting sufficient breaks during your PhD, which will help prevent burnouts and allow you to continue and complete your marathon in the long term. And I think also having a network of PhD candidates here in JCU, I'm quite lucky because I can just go to them for advice or for support or to complain about ethics is taking so long and things like that, or if I'm unsure, because I guess that support is important, and which will help with your self-care as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think building on that, I was about to ask, does it feel lonely being a PhD candidate? Because normally you have undergrad or postgrad, you have a class of classmates, whereas now you're pretty much alone. Yeah.
I actually sit together with some of the other candidates. So a few of us sit together at some of us are at the Research Commons, some of us are at A302. So being close by together, we can brainstorm for ideas or check up on each other. We also have a WhatsApp group with all the PhD candidates inside. So actually that helps to keep us connected to one another. And I think for James Cook University Singapore campus, they also have the monthly tea sessions, which brings together the Associate Dean of Research, research support, and the other candidates to come together to ask, hey, how are you? Or how's your project going? We just had like a Christmas tea session last week, where we had brownies, cakes, gifts, gift exchange, and things like that. So certain times during the PhD, I think you will be lonely because that's when you need to write, you need to read, and I guess nobody can help you with that. It's something that you have to do on your own. But times when you need a break, the other PhD candidates are there. Hey, I need to run through this idea with you, or I can't seem to get certain algorithms running and things like that. So they're there to actually provide you with support and check up on you. But there will be lonely times where you have to read, you have to write. Like for example, like during just like few months or 1 to 2 months before my confirmation of candidature, I would stay actually quite late because I needed to make sure I finish up the things that I was supposed to do. So it can get a bit lonely, but all these little support networks, events, social occasions actually keep you connected with the larger PhD candidate pool here in JCU.
Yeah, so good to hear there's a community of support, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes, and we all have different skills, so I think that's a good thing as well, because then sometimes we all think in different ways, so it's nice to hear that refreshing perspective that we didn't think of, because sometimes when you're doing so much of it, you're drowning in it, you don't see from other perspectives. So yeah.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have. So thank you very much for joining us in this interview.
Thank you for having me again.